it is barely Harris's to lose, but not by any. And I know Democrats probably feel good. I actually was in Montana off the grid last week, so I wasn't in Chicago on purpose. Um, we should feel good as a Democrat, but it's 55-45, maybe 60-40 at best for Harris to win.
So why is it that Harris had the best possible week, or best possible month, really, maybe of any candidate almost in history, and yet she's down in Georgia, as you mentioned, and she's down in these battleground states. Why is it? Why is it that she's down? What is the electorate like that is sticking with Trump?
The Democratic brand is horrible once you get past the notion. Um, I'm not going to, I don't want to feel too Midwesterner, but the party is viewed, if you look at just like focus groups, agnostic of a presidential election in like battleground states, people like Republicans are like Bible and flag, and Democrats, they're like elite and like they wouldn't use the word woke because that hasn't become something, but they're like the Democrats are concerned about someone else, and Republicans are strong and tough, and it's more a values base that people feel. And for Democrats, they're like they have these policies that seem to benefit everyone but me, and with Republicans it's like America. Like I hate, I used to have a friend in undergrad, we'd always like debate, but he would just say liberty and freedom, which but that wins you arguments. So the brand is really bad. The brand is really bad. The Democrats for a long time like again, I'm going to put my Ohio hat on. Like the stain of NAFTA has not lifted from the industrial heartland yet. It was maybe starting to die out in 2008, and then the Great Recession came. And pre-COVID, every demographic in the United States for the last 100 years has had increasing life expectancy. After the Great Recession, if you were a white man without a college degree, your life expectancy started to drop off. Opioids, stress, heart attack. So there's a big part of America, one, that hates the Democratic Party or doesn't trust the Democratic Party. Two, has been left behind by a system that literally has screwed them. And Democrats don't even acknowledge that, let alone act like we have a solution for them. Now, Trump is really good about basically saying you're getting screwed by the other, the immigrant, the Muslim. And at least he gives them, while a false, enemy, he's giving them an enemy. And the enemy is kind of like some of these policies and systems. And Democrats don't even acknowledge that. So, and then we'll get into like, I don't want to play like the race card and the like misogyny sexist card, but like, I'm also going to say that's not nothing.
And so if you were back in campaign headquarters and you were the strategist, what is it that the Harris-Walz campaign should be doing right now, given where your view of the Democratic brand is, and given the demographics, and given who the voters are going to be?
Yeah. First of all, I would have Walz, and again, I'm smiling because as a Midwesterner, everything the guy does, I think people have to remember, if you're a Midwesterner and you retire, you probably went to Nevada or Florida, or like your kids went to college and are now living in Atlanta. So this Midwestern ethos is actually in a lot of the battlegrounds because of the type of people they are. I worry a little bit about, like, I was never cool even in high school, and I don't really know what the brat thing is. I'm fine that was like this thing, but 0, like a numerical number, 0 number of undecided voters are impacted by that. And I don't know about like turnout, like how many people that turns out. And I'm not just isolating that one brat thing. And if you're not familiar with what I'm saying, Google it. But like, my worry, I would have Kamala Harris in front of a bunch of dudes who build things. Like, Democrats have a blue collar man problem. It's not a white man problem. It's a non-college male problem. And I appreciate that she has addressed some of her policies, that I think she was trying to find a lane in the primary, and I think she walked back a couple of them in a very smart way out of the gates. In the last week, there's been some housing policies that are like, don't necessarily feel necessary. Like, I don't know how many, I don't want to fall into the Hillary Clinton trap of like, let's have a policy for everything. So I would find ways to show that she is comfortable and understands, and this sounds so basic, but like we just don't do it. Comfortable and understands people who like have to like wash their hands when they get home because they're like building things. And I think it is much more optics than it is policy. I just kind of hope they don't do any more policy. Or if I do, it's like policy lanes and it's much more value based. So that would be, I would also, Democrats have this assumption that if you're black or brown or young, you're a progressive, and that's just not true. The base of the Democratic Party is like a 55-year-old black woman, and that 55-year-old black woman is probably pretty conservative by Democratic Party standards. And I worry a little bit that, again, this like social media presence, which you certainly need to do. My worry is like that leads the campaign instead of that is like part of the campaign. And this is where I get an odds with like the other Democratic elite operatives in DC whose bubble live in the social media bubble, and I just don't. So I would have every union president in Wisconsin with me, and in Michigan and in Pennsylvania on repeat. It's not just unions, but I would just say that that's an easy place to get a bunch of like dudes who build
things. And so what would you say? I have a couple more questions, so we'll stop recording and open up to everybody. What is her strategy to get to 270 with the electoral map today? What do you think they're going to do?
And it's always, and this is what it has been since 2020. Like I think once after Hillary Clinton, I think we realized that this Obama map existed once, partly because of Obama, but also partly because of McCain and the 2008 financial collapse. The path for Democrats, regardless of who was running for president in 20 and 24 and probably 2028, are Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, plus that one Nebraska congressional district. Because if you don't win that one congressional district and you win those 3 Midwestern, you're at 269 and it goes to the House. So her path is Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, and absolutely you have to win Pennsylvania. Democrats can't make up for losing Pennsylvania. The reality is, really since like the Gingrich revolution, you have seen, and part of it's social media and part of it is the tenor of politics, you have seen the calcification of like partisanship. Like we are just kind of like more stuck in our partisanship if you're a partisan. Partly, a lot of it because I think social media and Fox News or MSNBC. And so when you've seen that happen, you really don't see clusters of states move differently. If you're going up 2 points in Michigan, it is very unlikely you're going down 2 points in Wisconsin. And so from a kind of a cultural standpoint, you can kind of run in like most of Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan and shore up like Minnesota, which could actually flip much quicker than people realize, at least historically. You can run kind of one campaign plan there. You know, Midwestern states vote on a value and a feel. When you get to like parts of Georgia, a little bit more states with higher college education, it's a little bit more policy oriented, which, as I've said before, Democrats actually aren't great at right now. So you have to win Pennsylvania. You have to win Wisconsin. If you lose Michigan, the only state with the same electoral votes is Georgia. I think the reality is, if I had to put the states most likely to win, it would have been Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan. But now with Walz, I actually think that's Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Arizona, Nevada, Georgia. I know North Carolina right now looks like it has some spikes. We don't know enough about North Carolina for me to say it's worth putting in the top 5 targets. But you just can't lose Pennsylvania and Wisconsin.
My question is now from the Trump campaign perspective. I mean, obviously, if I was advising the Trump campaign, I think if anybody was advising not the Trump campaign, but Trump, you say, look, we don't want you to speak about anything other than immigration and inflation. Don't question when she became black. It's not what you should be talking about. Can we, if we pull my Democratic hat on, can we count on Trump continuing to do this, or do you think that campaign is going to become much more disciplined?
If you saw the first, and maybe you were smart enough not to watch it, especially if you're a Democrat. But if you watch the first like 40 minutes of that debate with Biden and Trump, if you're a Democrat, Trump was extremely scary because he was focused, he was disciplined. At some point, he just like couldn't help himself and just started turning into like traditional Trump. Their campaign manager, and I have a lot of Republican friends, and their campaign manager was a former DeSantis person, and she's apparently like really good. Trump just can't help himself. Trump would be really dangerous. I'll go back to when Trump was president. He wanted to actually work on infrastructure. The rumor is that like Paul Ryan had him focus on Obamacare. Had that guy passed infrastructure, he would have been reelected in 2020. He gets distracted easily. And after the assassination attempt, which is crazy, we don't even talk about that anymore, just how crazy this cycle is. And you heard like he's going to be this like unifier. And of course, that lasted 20 minutes at the convention. And then I stopped watching after an hour, but he lost it. If Trump could be who he was for the first 20 minutes of the debate and the first 20 minutes of the convention, I actually say it's 70-30 Trump. I don't think he can. And I don't think he can with Kamala. Biden struggled in those early debates because Biden just wasn't comfortable, first of all, debating 10 people at once. He wasn't comfortable debating 10 people at once. Trump isn't comfortable debating someone that's not, that he doesn't like. Trump doesn't know how to handle himself around Kamala Harris, and I don't think he's going to get there. And which I do appreciate a little bit of, like, I think sometimes Harris campaigns overplaying it, but I do appreciate them like poking him a little bit. I do think that the optimism, and Joe Biden, I've spent thousands of hours with Joe Biden. He's a very optimistic person. That got lost a little bit. And I think Harris keeping Trump in like a doomsday is going to backfire a little bit on Trump. And it's not even make America great again. I don't hear him say make America great recently, because that's an aspirational thing. And he hasn't done that recently. And I think he just wants to settle scores, and that's a bad Trump, and it lessens his chance of winning.